On my hand here is the lightest, smallest and most affordable medium format lens in production today. This is the GF50mm F3.5 LM Lens, and this lens is for the Fujifilm GFX medium format system. I'm Richard and welcome to ZP Productions, and today we'll have an initial review of this lens. So Singapore has finally moved to phase 2 and I finally can do one photo shoot with this lens itself, and I can tell you the results today. Straight away, if you don't want to look at the entire video and I'm going against my usual flow, this lens for its price of 500 USD is as good as it gets. Image quality, fantastic, everything is great. However, if you want the best image quality and don't care about price, as you know, if you are buying a GFX system, maybe that's your opinion and take on it. Definitely this lens is slightly lower than the 63 and 45mm lenses you can get. So without further ado, let's move on to the review itself. And as usual, my review is split into 3 parts: physical build, and all its physical stuff. Next, we'll talk about its handling and autofocus, and lastly, we talk about image quality. And we will be comparing with the 45mm that I have on hand now. As with build quality itself, it is a really well-built lens. As with all GFX lenses, it's a full metal lens, as you can see. And, it has weather sealing and gaskets all around. And this lens itself goes from, f3.5, as you can see here, all the way to f32. And the ring itself, if you ask me, is quite smooth and easy to turn. And then there's a button here that locks at A and C. Now, being a very smooth aperture ring, and if you have seen enough of my GFX video, I will tell you that this ring is really easy to displace. And in today's shoot, it actually got displaced a few times. It went from 3.5 to f4, f4.5, just to note. For GFX system, maybe you want to put it at C and just use electronic to control. But if not, just to note, most of the rings are too loose and they can easily get knocked over. Now, the focus ring is just really smooth thing and there is no hard ends. This is a focus by wire lens. As such, you have to use the body to autofocus the lens itself. So there is no tactile feeling in that ring itself. So there is nothing much to talk about. So I just want to compare, in terms of sizing compared to his bigger brother. This is the 45mm lens and this is the 50mm. You can see that lens size wise, the 50mm is almost half the height. And in terms of weight, I believe this is about 2/3 the weight of this lens. So this is really, really light and really, I'll say as well, nicely weighted for its size and price. So the next thing I'll talk about is its handling and of course its autofocus performance. As I said earlier, this is a really nice weight for its price, and it really works out really well on the GFX 100. When I mount on the GFX 100, most of the weight is actually on the first 2 cm. As such, when I put it on the camera, I can't even feel the camera is front heavy. I can't even feel the lens is there. Because this lens is probably as heavy as the L bracket on my GFX 100, and it adds really minor amount of weight when you look at the GFX 100 system itself. And because, most of the weight is at the back, you really can't feel that the lens is in front, and therefore, you won't even feel like it tilts forward. It feels like just one homogeneous weight on your hand. So, very nice weighted lens for the GFX 100. And if you're using the GFX 50R or 50S, definitely this lens is definitely at home for its weight and size. And next, we'll talk about its autofocus. And I'll say as this lens comes with a linear motor, and you can see the element is really small. And not only that, it doesn't have any moving parts, because if you see the back, it's a fixed element, the front is a fixed element, which means all its focusing is done internally, and it moves really little glass with the linear motor itself. The linear motor is extremely quiet. I will tell you that this lens is fantastic if you're using the GFX 100 to shoot video with it, because you can't even hear the linear motor working. But if not, when you're actually using it and initiating the AF manually, it is a really fast linear motor action. And I'll tell you that it is as fast as definitely, the 32-64, faster than the 45, faster than 63. It is a really fast lens when it comes to autofocus. And it is also really accurate. At least I didn't miss any shot with this lens itself. Now that we have got the physical and autofocus out of the way, let's look at image quality. And let's take a look at this shot. I will straight away explain with this shot here. If I zoom in on the eyes itself, where I usually focus on, firstly, you can count every single lash, no problem. You can see the detail on the skin, no problem. The overall contrast is quite good if you ask me, wide open. And not only that, if you look at the metal frame that she's wearing, the glasses that she's wearing, by the way, there's no glass, it's just a metal frame. You notice that there is some chromatic aberrations, but on a GFX 100 and not in the center itself, it is quite a good performance. If you have seen enough lenses, definitely this performance is as good as you get for the price range. In fact, this is probably better than most lenses of its price range. That being said, this is a 500 USD lens and it is only a f3.5 or should I say f2.8 equivalent aperture when you compare the full frame. As such, you are losing aperture compared to many other lenses out there for full frame at its price point. However, what you get is one of the best image quality you can ever get for its price point. Now, if you compare to the GFX lens, however, if you look at this 45mm lens, something similar in nature, the shot. I don't have the exact same shot, but you can look, it's something similar. The lashes is sharper, the contrast is better, and there is less chromatic aberration on the glass itself, if any. So you can straight away tell that the 45mm outperforms this lens. And if you ask me based on my ranking, the 45mm is actually quite low because it's actually below the 63mm, on par with the 32-64 most of the time. And this lens is actually below the 45mm. So this lens, if you ask me, is maybe as good as the 23 or maybe even slightly lousier than 23mm, putting it at quite a low bottom of the pile when you compare to the GFX lens optical quality bar, if you ask me. The only other lens that I felt less comfortable to use than this lens is the 100-200, and that lens, straight up, I will tell you that in the camera I can see chromatic aberrations, which is quite a turn off. While this guy, I can't really notice it until I look at the glasses themselves. So that's pretty much it for my image quality, and I move on to the conclusion itself. This lens for 500 USD is as good as it gets. In Singapore, you can probably get it for 700, and if you know the shopkeeper, you can maybe get it for slightly cheaper price. I'm not too sure. However, if you have used lens of this price range, I have used the RF35, I've used a Nikon 50-1.8 Z mounts. I'll tell you that this lens optical quality is really top notch, man. It's even better than the X series lens. I use the X series, the 50mm equivalent and the 75mm equivalent, which is I think the 23, 35 and 50mm f2 lenses. None of them is as good as this lens in any single way. And build quality, weather sealing, linear motor action, extremely fast autofocus, extremely good optical quality. This is truly a bang for the buck, if you ask me. It's a really weird statement to say for a medium format lens, but definitely this is bang for the buck. Now, if you are an initial GFX user, it means you're going to start up now, you're going to buy a new system. This is your entry taste to what a GFX image quality is like. If you ask me, this lens definitely outperforms any full frame equivalent. As such, if you were to adapt a lens, I think this lens will beat most adapted lens out there easily for its price point. This lens costs the same as some of the adapters out there. So if you ask me, buying this is a safe choice just to test out how good a GFX lens is. Now, if you were to upgrade thereafter, every single GFX lens, I can safely tell you, is better than this lens optically. As such, this is a good taste, and you know that any future lens will be a better one. And that's about it for today's review. If you'd like to see more Fujifilm GFX stuff, you'd like to look at more Canon EOS R stuff, want to look at mic reviews, or want to look at tutorials, do like and subscribe and follow my channel. But if not, just stick around and see whatever you want, because I'll be producing more videos, about 2 to 3 videos a week, and therefore I hope that you get entertained and learn something in the process. And then till then, next video, I will see you again. Bye bye.